Good.
All right, I'm recording. We are live. So, it has been 1 year since the Battle at Rexentrum, in which the Great Calamity had kicked off and the ninth obelisk had been set ablaze, opening a portal, shattering the Divine Gate and opening portals from other realms, allowing all of the Betrayer gods to come in, as well as the Prime deities to come in and battle it out. At the Battle of Rexentrum, just to point out a couple of things, we saw the Chained Oblivion. We saw Asmodeus, or Asmodeus there. We also saw, on the flip side of that, the Raven Queen descended down, guarding the city. We saw the Platinum Dragon Bahamut ascend toward the Chained Oblivion. We also saw Jazz for the first time in, would that be 200 years? No, no, 100, no, 30 something years. My math is terrible on that.
About 40 years.
About 40 years. There we go. Yeah, I carried the one in the wrong direction. Yeah, 40 years or so. So awesome to see Jazz back as she defended the party from Asmodeus, who was clearly trying to eliminate you all, as well as he's flicking like meteor swarms off in the distance, just causing absolute chaos. That battle essentially ends in Rexentrum decimated. The city itself no longer stands. If you would like to call it a draw, there is a case in which you can call it a draw because none of the primes died. You guys survived. So in that sense, okay. But on the other side of that, the betrayers also did not die. At this point in the war, 1 year later, no prime, no betrayer has fallen. We are still 18 strong, only 1 year into the Great Calamity. Let me remind you that the last Calamity lasted about 200 years.
Was it 18 primes or the 9 and 9?
9 and 9.
9v9?
Yeah, plus some lesser gods. I don't want to point fingers at Khonshu and things like that, but you get the idea. So, would anyone like to start us off as we enter 1 year later? What has your characters been up to?
Sure. I guess I will.
And since this is kind of a soft restart on like our series, introduce your character for us as well.
Oh, okay.
Oh, great. Okay. Can you hear me? Testing 1 2 1 2. Great. Hi. Raj Naha here in the flesh. Been a particularly interesting year for Raj. Despite making it through kind of the craziness of the beginning of this, Raj would have found himself kind of doing some work for the Raven Queen, kind of in the, I call it the kind of like the dark realm of things, kind of trying to save souls, and in one circumstance, Raj would have been saving one of the souls, and upon returning that soul to the ground, Raj would have sunk into the earth, blacking out from everything of what was going on around him, and finding himself in this coffin underground, unable to escape. So, as anyone could understand, the first few moments and some thereafter were just fleeing, was just full of panic, pounding on the coffin door to try to get out, trying to break the walls, sheer panic. Upon finally settling into this new surroundings, Raj would have kind of these moments of lucidity, kind of in and out of consciousness, and different experiences are going through his head. People dying, people living, people being reborn, and he found himself kind of going through all of this and kind of this vicious cycle. But every time he opened his eyes, he was still trapped inside of this coffin. Until one day he was having this dream that he was saving these lives again, and he fell down into the grave. And then when he opened his eyes from this dream, he was kind of coming through the ground, waking up and kind of in this like mossy field And upon looking around, he noticed it was this kind of graveyard-esque area full of mist and kind of a spooky atmosphere. He just began kind of walking around, and he saw a lot of gravestones and a lot of headstones of his family, of some people that he had known back in his original tribe, and some of the people that he has grown accustomed to living with and working with. The party were also on those headstones, and unable to really draw any straws of what was going on, he returned back to the coffin, laid down, and as he woke up, he was sitting around a campfire with everyone in the party, kind of with this new outlook on the world and kind of these new tools at his disposal that he's not really entirely sure of how to use or what they're going to do. But he's feeling invigorated. He's feeling kind of a part of things again. And for the first time, Raj is feeling hope and promise. And as he looks around at this campfire and he sees his newfound friends kind of sharing drinks and sharing tea and breaking bread, he realizes that this is where he needs to be, and all the choices that he's made to bring him here have been the correct ones, even though they may not have felt that in the beginning.
I mean, holy shit, who dares follow that up? That was insane. Beautifully told. The only thing I'd like to just ask is, how many seconds do you think passed at the campfire? Because it made it sound like that was a full year that was. How many seconds do you think that was?
I would say in the time of someone telling a joke or a story, he slipped into this unconsciousness.
Beautiful.
We just all think Raj doesn't get the joke.
Real quiet.
You've got Graymore trying to explain the joke to him, like, you missed the punchline.
Right.
Beautiful. Does anyone want to follow that up?
I'm happy to give our summary of what we kind of talked about.
Sure.
So the group kind of just did a few hit some big points for everything. So we kind of decided that at the end of the fight with in Rexentrum, the higher level characters would have cast teleportation circles, and we try to shove as many, us as C3, tried to shove as many civilians and soldiers in those teleportation circles as we can. So we were really focused on trying to save as many people, and we scurry people onto the sky ship that we see. It landed in by Cygnus and Victor. As it passes by the city, we almost think we're out of the city, and a massive chain whips into the ship, pulling it back. As it starts to fall, we get word of recall to the main base of the Shattered Teeth. So we kind of figured that would be how we escaped out of Rexentrum. While there, Raj actually finds Cygnus.
Just in case anything cool is
So,
hanging out.
that's a
Hey,
great
guys.
point. So, over the course of you two meeting, Raj, you did have a message from the Raven Queen to deliver to Cygnus. Has that been done behind the scenes, or is that okay?
No.
Raj, it is up to you if you would like to tell or relay the message.
Yes, I would.
My heart's pounding on my fucking chest. I've been waiting for this for a month.
Really killed you on the cliffhanger there.
Sorry,
It's okay.
I would definitely thought I was gonna have 5 minutes to recover from that, and we're right back.
No, we're right back in.
I'm
Let's go.
sweating
Sorry.
all over the place. I'm glad I layered.
I think
Alright.
that it's one of those, to, if I may set the scene
Mhm.
and give you a little bit more time,
Yes, thank you.
you would approach Cygnus, wearing Deathwalker's ward, I assume, and
Mhm.
she would definitely, and, she raises her chin, and I would say that, that halo of stars that I described last time that is only caught, dust and light, would flare just a little bit. It's definitely what the fuck? Why is he here? Like, who let him in? But anyway, as you're saying.
Excellent. So I would imagine that Raj, they would have gone kind of through. Sorry, I keep looking at our
It's okay.
text message strand. And
I'm looking up and away.
They would have kind of like had some time to like catch up and things. Was there someone in your party that went by the name of Honorian?
There was.
Yes. I don't know how to tell you this in the best of ways, but were you close?
Yes.
Then I am terribly sorry that you had to hear this from me, but I believe I was put here for a certain purpose, and that is Honorian will not be with us in this mortal plane now going forward. He decided to choose death and to not continue.
So is what you're saying to me that at that moment on the beach, when I tried everything, he made the choice?
Yes, if that is my understanding, that yes, that he was offered the opportunity to continue, and he chose to not.
Shit. I think that you would see Cygnus's jaw is like working, and she's having a really hard time processing what she's hearing. But kind of like not centering herself, but like going back to that moment on the beach, and like going back to like the moment that she officially like divested herself of any like love or respect of the Raven Queen whatsoever. Like I think that she's gonna steel herself, and like she's still stuck there, and she's like, if that's what she said, be very careful. That bird-boned old bitch only knows how to take. Be careful. Watch yourself.
Yeah.
It might be one of yours next. And then Cygnus is going to turn and walk away.
As you turn, Cygnus, you see a porcelain mask at your height, cloaked in feathers, donning a black dress. You see the matron of ravens in front of you. And as she pulls her mask away, you get pulled back to the beach. In the moment that you bargained with the matron of ravens at the end of campaign 2, she pulls you into the interaction specifically with Honorian and herself. As you were speaking to her and begging for Honorian to be spared, she shows you behind the curtains. So as she was facing you in person, behind the scenes, she was lifting Honorian's head from the ground, looking at him and asking, do you have any fight left to give? Or would you like to rest? And Honorian specifically said that he wanted to rest and that he had fought his fight. And as she laid him gently into the water on that beach, he disappeared, his soul gone. turning back into the interaction between you and her, which you couldn't see, obviously that interaction, but between you and her, she safeguarded Honorian's wish until he was fully sent back to his home, where he would rest forever. And she put on a stone face because at the end of the day, everyone needed to be strong in that moment. And she knew it would make you stronger too in the long run. As you come back into that moment with Raj, as you were turning away, she puts the mask back on, and all she does is bow, and then she vanishes. Just a single black feather dropping.
You see Cygnus kind of address the air, just in general, and be like, "We'll discuss this further later." And Raj, you can't tell if she's speaking to you or someone. Just, we'll discuss this. Because 100+ years of misplaced grief really is something. 100+ years of misplaced blame and grief is something to fuck with.
Yeah, so while we're at the Twilight Accord, they started to need some help with just the sudden massive influx of refugees. And so they were borderline at capacity when they were there. So we spent about a month while we're there at the Twilight Accord helping refugees in our own various ways, including trade routes start between the SOB and the Twilight Accord, being like, hey, we have a bunch of refugees, you guys have a bunch of refugees, and kind of put a little bit of just some resource trading in that way and kind of helping each other out. Does anyone want me to pause there so you can kind of like talk about things that happened while we were at the Twilight Accord? Does anyone have stuff there?
Yeah. We can go over Runeberg a little bit and see if Man says anything special for me. So while we were there helping people, you know, 4 hands are better than 2, or 1 realistically at this point. So I guess 3 hands are better than 1 if we're gonna go full. Anyway, so you know, at some point we're on the Shattered Teeth, right? And I will raise Terrainberg, and as he is made up of what is around him, he gets raised as this obsidian copy of me, because there's just all this cooled lava rock all around the Shattered Teeth, which Runeberg knows nothing about, and so Matthew pretends he knows nothing about. And then, you know, something requires my attention over there, and I snap over, like I do, trade places with Terrainberg, but this time instead of snapping over and having a fully formed Terrainberg where I was, and a 1-armed Runeberg where Terrainberg was, I now have a 2-armed Runeberg where Terrainberg was, and a 1-armed Terrainberg where Runeberg was. And you know, I kind of look down and I'm a little confused, and as I look back at Terrainberg, he just basically shuffles some more rock out and forms a new arm. So now we both have 2 hands, but one of mine is made of obsidian rock. Anything, Mans?
I'm gonna hold for a moment here.
Okay.
We're gonna let that stew for a second.
Hold.
In out for a hero.
Holding out for radio.
I guess I'll just go over the last little bit of kind of summary we have, and then we can kind of go through if anyone else has anything. We would have at some point started sailing for a few months, basically trying to get from the Twilight Accord to the SOB. We'd be stopping for supplies, helping with small tasks, helping with small cities or towns or places that are being overrun by demons, devils, fiends, whatever it may be. Helping out there and kind of just doing some little side quests. But for a few months, we'd pretty much be sailing with the goal of helping or getting to the SOB to kind of help with the next mission there. that's pretty much the main thing that I have. And so for Sylvie in particular, while we're doing these, helping these small cities, helping these things, in kind of her anger, I would imagine that she probably hasn't had much contact with Xerxes immediately after. I imagine he probably kind of had to go take care of things. And so as she's like fighting, as we're fighting all of these like demons and devils, anything that like has a tail, at some point when everything is done, she's basically has her daggers again, which she hasn't had since she almost cut her eye out and stabbed Runeberg and stabbed Greymore, whoever else she also stabbed. She hasn't had her daggers, but with kind of the anger of everything that's happening, she would have been like cutting off the tails of some of these devils and basically like tying them to her whip, but basically starting a new whip, and essentially would make her a new 9-tailed devil tail whip that she now has with her. And you guys know that she calls it Discipline. And that is kind of her main weapon that you guys see now. But she also, along the adventure, basically finds a few other like magic items, a few like a dagger and some really cool armor that she has, where she's almost like hard to focus on in kind of bright light. And then yeah, she gets her kind of like, in one of those fights, she basically has like a few other scars that she earns on the way. She ends up like cutting her hair off, just going kind of edgy in this like end of apocalyptic times. And in a very dramatic, this is the worst timeline, she does dye part of her hair green.
Gotta have a streak.
Darkest timeline, guys.
Poor Britta.
Gotta put some respect on.
I think that's kind of the only other. No, I think that's kind of it for now.
Does Spin have stuff you want to talk about?
Yeah, but I can go after you, Bill.
Okay. Were you done, Jordan? Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah. Galileo's pretty like. But I guess so. You're gonna have to talk. You said you wanted to talk more about the index protocol. I don't have anything that I've developed on that.
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Yep.
So there would have been the discovery of and exploration into that particular protocol. He would have, in this post-apocalyptic time, we talked about like changing the way he looks. He's essentially the same person, but instead of like being cloaked up and hidden, he's gone for more of a poisonous animal, poisonous plant look, where like to be like looking more intimidating to be fucked with, because he really doesn't want to be fucked with because he can't, because I've got no hit points. So he's got like I imagined it as like this Mad Maxian theme like style, where like it's now like metallic, like with like plates, but he's got a couple of horns that he's attached like onto the top of his head, like you might imagine a mohawk, like 3 to 4 of them, like going in the back, and then on his back, where he has ventilation for the light that's within him, so it glows with that same bright light, and part of it is raised out with like a new apparatus within him that he crafts over the course of the year, and like body mods works on himself to make his spells more effective, harder to resist, as well as several new visors and lenses that are attached to a plate that covers up like the bottom half of his face, and then goes up and like has lenses that drop down with different geometric angles on them. So, but in addition to like maybe a couple more things, like the plate or whatever has like lines on it, making it look kind of like the bottom of a skull over his mouth. So yeah, he's just going for that kind of look, all cosmetic stuff. And then the story stuff for him would be diving into the index protocol and helping the group with missions and things, learning everything he can, being a really supportive team player for Galileo. As far as the stuff that like the Twilight Accord would be up to, I don't know what we want to say for all that. Yes, you can just dump it out on the chair. I'll come and get it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My pleasure.
All right. I'll jump into the into Comort. I'll jump into the index protocol once I think we've got Phoebe, and then we've got Greymoor. So I think those are the last two for what you guys have been up to, and then we'll get into all the
fun stuff.
Well,
Perfect.
This is fun.
Yeah.
the monologue.
This is the best stuff.
This is
you want to go
me
next,
monologuing.
Phoebe?
So in the last year, like Phoebe would have like, it's obvious that like Phoebe would not have been far from Sylvie at any point in time. And she's really focused in on trying to like work, like she and Sylvie like are already good fighting together, but like trying to really like hone in on being able to fight together well, and like leaning into her like I can become an apex predator at any point in time. It's time to start acting like that. Because like on the outside, like when Phoebe is Phoebe, like it's still very sweet, small, normal Phoebe. But like with all of this weird like radioactive magic like flowing through the air, like there's very subtle changes. Like in Phoebe's normal form, like she almost looks a little bit more fey. I would almost a little bit more feral. Like her personality hasn't changed whatsoever, but like you see like her pupils every now and then will slit. Like she'll get these weird slit pupils, and like every now and then she won't notice, but the vestigial, like her vestigial tiefling wings will flare when she's not paying attention, and it just kind of happens. And the way that I kind of wanted to lean into flavoring this is like you see like you see a person on the street and you're like, oh, that's just a normal person, but something in the back of your head starts to tickle, like that's not a person that I want to approach. And like she hasn't changed, but just something about Phoebe's aura in general has made her a little bit more intimidating to come up to. And also like you've noticed her taking more and more like aggressive wild shape forms and larger wild shape forms. She's getting a little bit more reckless with her like the mutations that she takes, just to like see how far she can push the power of the wild shape, and her wild shapes also begin to look a little bit more infernal. Okay, cool. I want to make sure it wasn't important. But like her wild shapes, like they're almost a little bit more like leathery looking. Like, have you ever seen like a bear without hair? How that looks like a big fucking chupacabra? Yeah, like a big weird. Absolutely, but like some like they all look a little bit more infernal in general.
Wendigo.
Winnebago.
Yeah, a Winnebago. Like it gently unsettling, and but like in Phoebe's, like she's taken this wild mat of hair as well that she just like had as this free-flowing thing and has braided it into these multiple like long braids, extremely Jinx inspired for my arcane friends. And like you see that she's like pulled the wood from one of her horns down over her missing eye, so half of her face is just wood now. Just like a good solid chunk of her face is just this like white wood, and like in like with the way that magic is working and how it's weird and radioactive, like every now and then these weird like mushrooms will grow on it, and like the moss that you see on the sides of dead trees will like grow on her eye patch and like into her horns. And I had another thing and I've forgotten what the fuck it was, but it was important in Saloon. So like doing her best when she can find a moment to like look up at the sky and kind of look at where Saloon used to be and like reach out to that place that she would reach in, like that she did not knowingly reach into when Saloon would talk to her, but just like trying to say, I'm still here. I still wish to have you around. You are still important to me. I will fight for you. I do fight for you, and if there is anything I can do to reignite the moon in the sky, I will do that. I hope that you can hear me, and I hope that you are listening, and even if you are not, I do not particularly care. I will speak to you until I cannot anymore. And like leaning into the kind of the dark moon, speaking to the dark face of Saloon, if you will.
Yeah.
Since there isn't a face at all.
And by the way, you've prayed over the year, reached out to her. You've never heard a response, but you've also never lost your magic.
Yeah, and like she's fashioned that piece of like moon rock into this circlet that sits like right at the center of her forehead. So it's this like delicate little moon circlet that sits right there.
Greymore. So after all the like side missions that we all did, so like I would say we probably had like 7 to 8 months of by ourselfness. Greymore would have gone on to a self-discovery trip. He finally has time to explore the book that he found on him that was talking about his past life, where he only got through one passage, which was telling him on how he was formed. So he would take his trip all the way back to the Underdark, where he first began in the jail cell right before he died, because that's his last living memory between the, what was it, 200-year gap? Something like that. I forget what the gap was.
Between C2 and 3?
The start of C2, and then, yeah.
Oh, but then your age.
Yeah.
100 plus.
So,
100 plus.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's somewhere. It's a big gap.
Yep.
But that's where he started. So that's where the book led him to. He's trying to leave the intelligent Greymore out, like in the open, to try to absorb everything, understand what's going on in the book, and understand the different personalities that he has, and is trying to bring them all to one. And on that mission trip, he finally learns who Honorian was to him, because that is described in the book as he's reading through the passages and on how close of friends he was and everything like that. And when he visits the jail, so as he's going down to the jail cell, he is exploring the Underdark. He sees where he was, where he lived most of his life before he met Honorian. He found his father's armor, who is no longer there anymore, because it's like that 300 gap. So like his entire area is like, not wasteland, but kind of ghost town. It's a ghost town. It no longer exists, but like everything's still in its place as he remembers it. And he remembers his dad's armor, so he picks up his dad's armor and starts to wear it now. It's an old raggedy dwarven plate armor that's all over him, and so that's what he represents now. He got rid of the flashy armor that changed colors and all that, so now when you see him, he's just straight up gray. Like, it just represents his name, just gray. And then so after he visits that town, he gets into the jail cell, and it's at that point in time he loses consciousness. So he's no longer in that realm. A different figure takes him. And so from that point in time, a dimension door opens up. And as Cygnus is churning around and wiping the feather out of the air, she hears a whisper of, "Howdy, partner."
I'm gonna fucking...
I've been meaning to tell you this for a long time, but I haven't had the heart to do so. And you don't see anything around you. Like, it's like a recording almost. Like, Greymore is there, but you don't see Greymore. It's just a recording of in the air, kind of like a whisper in the wind. I'm sorry I could not come back to this realm to continue our fight. I felt that all of this was caused from my hometown when I found the Book of Oblivion, the chains, in the tree. And at that point in time, I lost my soul and never got it back from all the damage that I have done in my life. So I made the decision that this earth, or this realm, was better off without me because I didn't want anything else to happen to my friends. It wasn't until this point in time where I could deliver this message, where I hid it amongst my friends. I appreciate you wanting to try to bring me back, but I did not see the benefit in this realm for it. And as he finishes that sentence, you just see like another feather wish away, something that you can't grab, and it just floats off into the distance. From there, he goes to another, like you'll see like that feather and kind of like the dimension door effects happen, and then it appears in front of Eldaron. And he apologizes to Eldaron for never being able to actually be a part of his life. And he knows that Eldaron's a man of few words, so he just leaves it at that. He just goes, "I'm sorry to cause all this destruction." And then he wisps away. And then Greymore wakes back up in the jail cell, and he starts to remember everything that Anorian, like, so they kind of like have a kumbaya moment, so they're able to understand. Greymore's able to understand what his life was before he got resurrected, and so now Greymore's starting to put back together his old life and starting to grab all of his old personalities back to himself. So now there's even more of an internal warfare between him and himself in his head. So it's great. But he's hoping that this book that was left to him, that's been able to resurrect all his previous memories with Anorian and all that, brings his life back to a normal self. So after that moment in time in the Underdark, he makes his way back to meet with the group, and that's where you just see just straight gray. And now you understand why, like, as the backstory of why he just represents gray right now, because he doesn't know what path he's going to follow in his life, because he's being torn each and every way.
Gray Man the Gray.
Gray Man the Gray.
God damn it, Spin.
God,
Fucking God.
damn it.
Hey.
Yeah.
Who would have
guys.
thought
was-
we hated
that was
Lindsay
deep.
and we were just gonna kill Lindsay today?
Like, help. Help. It's fine. I'm having a great time. I imagine that like that happens, and like as like she was walking away, and then she stopped when the Raven Queen stopped her, and then she starts walking away faster, and then stops again, and she's like, okay, and you just see the wings unfurl, and she just takes off and lands at the top of this incredibly tall tower in the center of the Twilight Accord. Like, there is one tower that stands up higher than all the other towers, and just like, and is sequestered. Cool.
Raj, meanwhile, watching all of these conversations happen with one person, just kind of turns away. He's like, "Man," and I thought I was fucked up.
Raj
That's what
was
happens when you talk to fucking Raven Queen.
But if you want to go back to that night, I was texting Mans religiously not to allow you to bring Anorian back. So it was my
You
call.
son of a bitch.
It
Yeah.
was my call from the start. As soon as I went down, I said, "Don't let anybody bring him back."
Which any sort of resurrection
Post
spell,
the receipts.
well, this 100%
Start
happened.
scrolling.
Resurrection, revivify, any of those, you have to have a willing participant to bring
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
back. So as soon as he said that, you know,
It doesn't work. Yeah.
it's done.
Game over.
There's nothing that the Raven Queen can do, the leader of the domain. There's nothing I can do. So, yeah, that is literally, 2 years in the making, that moment right there. So,
Incredible.
yeah. All right, so On that note, after
We're not done?
no,
Oh my god!
it's my turn now.
Let's fucking go!
Then do you roll initiative?
Last call. Anyone else? Did I miss anyone? Does anyone want to get anything off their chest before I monologue here and drag one of you in each time?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with Runeberg. Runeberg, as you
Hi, Runeberg.
describe your arm as you pull away and you see, well, your new part.
Yeah. I guess
About 8 inches big.
It's a baby's arm.
you know when you have like cooled lava rock, you've got like that really light pumice stuff, or you have that like shiny obsidian, like sharp edged. I'm going with the shiny, like obsidian sharp edged, and I assume I'd like it to look as much like a real arm as possible, but I don't want it to be like skin straight line, obsidian straight line. So maybe it's got like some spikies that come up over the skin. You know what I mean? But basically, I mean, if you want, it would be cool if there was some like maybe a little bit of lava heat between the cracks of the obsidian still.
I mean, maybe you know how perfect it is that you're describing rock and fire, more or less, put together. During a evening communing with Cord, as you glance about your new arm, and you feel this new, it's almost like there's not another personality, but there's an essence that you've never felt, a new strength that is part of you. And as you commune with Cord during one of these stormy nights, you find yourself looking across a vast wasteland. You see the gods fighting amongst each other. You see primordials fighting on the side of the betrayers against the prime deities. And what you're getting a glance at is the first Calamity, in which the Dawn Father, taller than a mountain, and the Wild Mother,
The Dawn Daddy.
Dawn Daddy, and the Dawn, or the Forced
Dawn
Mama.
Mommy.
Yeah, they are
Earth Mommy?
they are fighting, and literally they're fighting against Kamort and Raishan, primordials that represent the earth and fire. And as they both cast their final spell, you watch as something larger than a mountain. Imagine if a mountain could stand, if Mount Everest could get up and stretch its legs, stretch its arms. That is what Kamort is, the size of Kamort. And Raishan is nothing short of the largest hurricane of fire that you've ever seen. And these two surrounding each other, protecting each other, fighting against the Dawn Father and the Wild Mother as they throw everything they have at it, or at them. But the final spell that's cast, you watch as they get zipped up and shot into space, as they could not be defeated. So what the Prime Deities did was they got rid of them. They teleported them out. As they get zipped up and shot into space, you see the Dawn Father, his eye catches something as it drops off in the distance. And you just see a small piece of what looks like obsidian as Raishan and Kamort, a piece of them held together as it drops into the earth, not to be seen again until you found it. That is, at this point, the only known living remnants of the primordials, Raishan and Kamort. And Cord, through this storm that you're looking at as you kind of pull back, all you see are his eyes just in the sky. And you hear, power's yours now. You pull back further from that, and you test your arm out. Fighting. And we move past. So not just one primordial for you. 2 are in that arm. And we'll see if anything comes of that. I'm sure nothing will come of having 2 primordials in your arm. Not at all.
Can't imagine anything would.
2 of which you fought on the side of the betrayers, let me remind you.
Love to hear it.
Yeah. Moving past, let's go to Galileo.
The Explorer.
So, Galileo, the last thing that you did before we progressed 1 year into the future, you called for the index protocol to be activated.
Mm-hmm.
Galileo, I'm going to pull you back to a time in which there's nothing but darkness around and lights, almost like stars in the night sky.
Is
But
this like a vision, or do I have a timestamp?
no timestamp. But almost like a coagulation of stars together, and you look around and you are nothing short of a set of stars, yourself. You look around and you see other coagulation of stars and lights around you. And you zoom out a little bit past, and you find yourself in some sort of palace made of light. And you hear joy. Almost sounds like your brothers and sisters. But they're not people. They're light. You hear what appears to be, for the first time ever in your lifetime, and by the way, you've only ever known existence at this point. There's no before this moment. You've always been stars. You've always been light. But for the first time in existence, in eternity, you hear what sounds like one of your siblings frightened, scared, charging towards you, telling you to run. In that moment, what do you do?
Question.
Mm-hmm.
From what? I go with him.
Don't know. At this point.
But,
Just the light
meaning,
flies
like,
past you. Down the hall.
Okay, I look down the hall, for like where they came from.
From where they came, what you see is darkness, almost like swallowing the palace around you.
Do I have any ability to stop that?
At this point, you're not sure. But you see your
Does it look
brothers and
like-
sisters running in the opposite direction, flying, levitating in a different direction.
I go with him.
Okay. As you turn and try to reach out to see if there's anyone else, any other brothers or sisters that you could possibly help, you see one light reach out to you and just get absorbed, swallowed, gone. You continue down the hall. You go out to the main garden, and all you see is space around you. You're at the entrance of the palace. And you see your brothers and sisters. There must be 18 of you or so out here, panicked, looking for a way out.
Okay. So, I would mimic what my brother or sister said and tell them to run, and then I would charge toward the darkness.
Okay. As you charge toward the darkness, you get pulled, almost like a hand on your hand. And you get pulled back as the darkness swallows the palace and says, "This is not our fight. We must run for now. Can you take us
Sick.
to safety?
I would charge far away then with them. Or wherever I know is safe, which I don't know.
You are, as far as you know, the eldest of your kin. Of the 18 brothers and sisters that you had before you, who are all, again, made of light, losing you would mean that they would be killed. As you push forward away from what has been your home forever, you see the last parts of your palace, of your home, be absorbed into darkness. And you still see the night sky behind you, space. You still see what appears to be stars all around the background. As you lead your family out and you kind of shoot at the speed of light into a new direction, you watch, and your family watches, as you look behind every so often and you just see lights disappear from the night sky. After what might be...
I feel really angry, by the way. Like, this would be really deeply upsetting and infuriating. And sad.
As you travel for days, weeks, months, years, centuries, you're not sure. What is time to something that has always existed? After so long in your journey, you don't see the lights going out anymore as often. You feel like you've got a bit of a gap separating you and whatever this entity is that is devouring your brothers and sisters. But you see this planet below you, shrouded in darkness. And I pull you back, Galileo, to a vision you had earlier in this campaign in which you had this exact encounter. And do you remember what you said you would do to this shroud of darkness upon the planet?
I fuck that shit up.
As you charge toward the darkness,
Get a little revenge.
as you go towards the darkness, you're giving hope to your brothers and sisters that they'll be able to live here on this planet, call it home for the first time in who knows how long. As you hit the darkness, you scatter. The darkness dissipates, but each shard of you drops into different parts of this planet. Your brothers and sisters will call this place home. They'll call it Exandria.
Are the parts of me that are shattered everywhere allowing my brothers and sisters to be here, or is it feasible to re-put myself back together and still everything's fine?
That's the tricky part. Now, you go unconscious for centuries.
Yeah, who knows?
Until a little rabbit puts you back together and attempts to connect your light into some sort of magical scientific, or sorry, specifically scientific way to process and understand itself. In the most simplified version that you can understand yourself, you had almost like this computer interface that just starts a timer at the bottom. You've got several protocols on you, and it's all about you rediscovering yourself. It's you trying to understand what you are. And it wasn't until you encountered other prime deities, when they saw the lights in you after this 1 year, the first year of the Great Calamity, the first thing that, for instance, Bahamut said to you, the old man long white beard, looked at you, and almost without hesitation said, "Brother, it is so good to see you. It has been so long." And he calls others. The Wild Mother in her form. Blackened skin, red curly hair, dragging on the floor beneath. Comes up and just embraces you. And she says, "You gave us a chance."
So
You see the Dom Father come up and he smacks you on the side and he says, "What have they been calling you down here? The Luxon?"
that was going to be my question.
I'm glad you never forgot that you came from the stars, Galileo.
And then, so can I have a rush of memories of what the Luxon is, and maybe that's said out loud for all of our listeners?
So, the Luxon, obviously, shards
Get
of
in the
light.
chat, everybody. Sorry.
I believe 118 shards of light, or 120. It's one of those 118, 120 shards of light that represent the 19th god, the one that gave its life so that way that its brothers and sisters, before there was primes, before there was betrayers, gave your kin a chance at a home. So, Galileo, you are one of the gods.
Luxon, I guess.
You always have been. Now, the index protocol, that's the interesting part here. You can't fully become the Luxon or Galileo. You can't fully become that
Halo.
unless you have all of those pieces. What you've been doing over the past year, it's strange. You've been, ever since the index protocol has been activated, over various parts of the year, people have just shown up, bowing, and handing you pieces of the shard. And every time they do that, they
What are the pieces of the shard?
well, pieces of you. They're pieces of light. And they just ever so slightly attached like a puzzle. Almost like your Yugimoto with the Millennium Puzzle. Just attaching new pieces.
I don't know the Yugimoto reference.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
So.
Are you talking about Yu-Gi-Oh or something?
No.
Shadow Realm?
Maybe. So, I'll just say that your light that you have, what you didn't realize was that there are pieces that slide into it like a puzzle, and it creates a bigger light. So essentially, over the course of this year, people have been arriving and have been giving this to you as a present, and they've been telling you that there has been a voice communing with them to bring the light home, and that light has always led them back to you. You're not fully intact. You still are missing pieces. One of those pieces, for instance, is being held by none other than Victor and
That's what I was going to ask you.
Cygnus.
Do the pieces come looking like a Luxon beacon?
Yeah, without the the prism that holds them. But yes, those lights. Yeah, those lights, no doubt. They do vary in size, vary in shape, but nonetheless, you have been slowly reassembling, if you will, into what your former self was. And you get the feeling that you're being called to again protect your kin. But again, the last time that you know kin, there was no crime, there was no betrayers. They were all just your brothers and sisters the last time you saw them. So there is conflict there.
I just wanted to play a robo-wizard this campaign.
I said, why not just let him be a god?
I just wanted to be a robot wizard. I thought that was cool.
Yes, so you and I will have conversations on what that means for your character and for the future. Okay. But the index protocol, by the way, has been activated and it has not been turned off. It's just ongoing.
Like, the implications of that could make that could be key to stopping this whatever calamity, right?
Could be. Depends how you use your powers. You used it once to eliminate darkness and to save your kin. Give them a chance. Who's to say what it could do this time when you're fully back to your form?
Correct. Go on.
All right. So we pan away from Galileo.
Top marks, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, we pan to Sylvie and Phoebe as they. Do you need a moment? Should I go to?
We just have the gigs over here. We're good.
I can't stop.
Well,
I mean, if you say something really sad, it might help. So go ahead, buddy.
I'm on Jed. Okay, what's up?
Okay.
so
Hey, how much? How much? Are you gonna pay for my therapy bill? I'm so sorry. I can't stop.
we got her.
It's written in our benefit package that we'll get later on.
It's done. She's down.
My freaking said.
Well, are you sure? Because I'm about to take it where it probably hurts still.
It's
Wake
fine.
me up.
I've been there.
Okay,
For the
so
last 20 minutes.
Are we not using phrasing anymore, mans?
I'm always phrasing. There's a phrasing counter in our comment section.
Jordan
So
asked a good question. When did we hear the phrase "bring the light"? Was that last campaign?
bring the light. That would have.
Oh, it was when we were fighting the chains, right? In C2.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember where we heard it from though. Like who said it?
I think the Raven Queen.
It.
That bitch. No, she's right.
Is she
Because
one of
I'm
the
pretty.
primes?
Yeah,
Yes.
The good
Oh,
ones, or the bad ones.
she's a prime, not a betrayer.
Got it. Sorry,
So-
I'm ignorant.
she wants you to protect the light because obviously, she has to deal with the repercussions of good people dying too early.
Well,
So that would be probably the implication there.
Okay.
Really, what I was. We can cut this out. Sorry. When we were asking how we like broke the chains that held either the chain oblivion or whatever, and it was like there's like 9 chains, and we were like, how do we do that? And we were told to bring the light.
Oh, okay, that was the context. Got it.
I'm just wondering if it's. I'm just piecing it back.
All right. So, Phoebe and Sylvie, you've had these fever dreams
Ooh.
over the past, and you can tell me, maybe it's days, maybe it's weeks, maybe it's months, maybe it's been the whole year, but the last thing that constantly hits you in your dreams is, I'm sorry. We did everything we could. Just know that I love you. And then that light exploding from Rexentrum and erupting, and then you just wake up. And that, again, maybe for one of you, it lasts for a few weeks, for maybe another lasts for months. But you hear the voice of your mother, and you just can't help but think, could you have done anything to prevent that? Was there another course of action that could have been taken to save your mother? Now, your father is the interesting part here. You have wondered, is he alive? Was he down there with this whole thing? And also, maybe you even hold out hope that your mother is alive. But at this point, Sylvie, every so often, Xerxes has visited you either at the sanctuary or at the Twilight Accord. He's visited and he's kept in contact. For the most part, what he's been attempting to do is get in the good graces of Jazz, to establish a home at the sanctuary, and to prove that he is no longer tied to Asmodeus. Part of that has been Jazz and Mads trying to remove the runes, the contract, from him. And it has been a difficult task, which is why he disappears for weeks at a time, for months at a time. But he does check in And you've never lost your power either. You've always, anytime you've called on Xerxes to lend you magic, it has always been there, if needed. So, yes, he is still around. He's making a base at the Sanctuary of Bahamut, and he is at this point still allied on your side. Jace, on the other hand, Jace has been working feverishly, trying to figure out a way to take down Gordranus. He has a letter that he puts firmly into your hand, and there's a seal on it. And he says, I need you to take this to the Twilight Accord. This cannot touch anyone else's hand. It must be delivered specifically to Cygnus or Victor. If it leaves your hand and touches another, it will disintegrate. It is meant for just their eyes. But I think I have a plan. But we need their help.
It will be done.
Unfortunately, I can't teleport you there. As you know, we don't want to risk anything being spotted by the betrayers. It'll be a boat. You'll need to sail. It's about 10 days from the sanctuary to the Shattered Teeth. Are you okay assembling the crew for it?
Oui. That is not a problem. We can go ahead and get that together. We should be able to leave sometime tomorrow or the day after, depending on where everyone is. Will the letter disintegrate if I put it in my pocket?
Well, just be very careful. It won't.
I don't want to hold it for 10 days. What if I fall asleep and it just leaves?
If someone else picks it up, then it will disintegrate.
Okay.
So if you do drop it, just make sure that nobody else touches it. That is a 1-for-1. I would love to send a sending spell, of course, but too risky to be intercepted. So we go the old school route.
Have we looked into carrier pigeons?
Well, as you know, Rundar has not forgiven us
We know a guy.
for staining
Really?
his Marquesian wood. He still talks about it. Incredible. In the Great Calamity, he still talks about this wood.
Those are his magic pigeons, though. Those aren't our actual, trained carrier pigeons, because perhaps we could... You know what? I'll look into it. It's fine. I will get this delivered. It's not a problem. That will not be an issue. It will be taken care of.
Beautiful. I love that.
Are we planning to come back here afterwards, or are we leaving directly from the Twilight Accord?
I think this is potentially a one-way trip.
That's all.
I think we go to the Twilights, and then we go to where we need to go.
Of course.
So, anything that you need at the sanctuary, I'd advise packing it. Yeah, that's... I hate to suggest saying your goodbyes, but make sure everything's in order before you leave. That'd probably be best.
No problem. We will ensure that everyone knows we will be away for some time after this.
Wonderful. I shall join you all just a little bit behind, separating. I'll have Xerxes with me as well, but we'll be behind. Just a few days behind. Got to take care of some things here.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
just rest assured, we're going to take down Gordranus this time.
I believe that we can do it. Which we've been training for us this time for otherwise.
I want to ask you bluntly. Would you prefer that your sister not be on this mission?
No, if anything, I'm stronger with her. We've been really refining some of our techniques, and I think that, well, quite frankly, I couldn't do this without her.
My fear is that there's a good chance that this is my last rodeo. If it is yours, can she live with that?
Is
I
he
think
talking about going to the Accord or to Gordranus?
So
that's-
to the Accord is the part 1, and then the bigger part being Gordranus. So the Twilight
Got it.
Accord he's less concerned about dying. The Gordranus would be the...
No, I just didn't know how dramatic he was being about like what's happening in the present, or if it was like an overall. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think if this last year has taught us anything, it is that we have to live in the moment, and we never really know which one will be our last. So, will she be okay with it? No, but I'd be very heartbroken if she was.
Will you be okay with it if she goes and you're the one who has to live with that?
The same. Live with it. Ray, happy with it. Never. Would I be okay not going and sending her instead, or vice versa? No, that's just not what we were born to do.
He goes in, embraces you, and pats you on the back and says, tomorrow then. And Xerxes and I will be, let's call it 3 days behind. But we'll be there. We cannot wait for what we have in store. As we pan over to Phoebe. Phoebe, you...
Hey.
How do you respond to these dreams, nightmares of just the last thing you hear is, "We love you," and then seeing the light erupt?
I think that it's adding to this like drive to push herself farther. And like I think that she's afraid to send a sending spell for multiple reasons, not only because it could trigger something and it could set off our position, but also like, what if we don't get anything back? And so like it's the call that she can't make because she doesn't want the line to come up empty. At least not yet. And not until things are okay again, and not until things are safe again. And it's almost better at this point in time to not know what's going on, I think. But like it's something that's always kind of sitting at the back of her mind, that's like she doesn't know where her father is, she doesn't know where her mother is, and like just the immediate assumption that like mom's gone, don't know where dad is, like, and it's like when she found Sylvie at the Battle of Rexentrum and like hearing that last message from mom, it's like, as far as Phoebe knows, Sylvie is all she has left, and that's her focus, is like working better with Sylvie and becoming a better team with Sylvie, and focusing on the mission at hand, in Phoebe's own way, which is like keeping things light, keeping things easy as best she can, keeping morale up, like going back to the very, very beginning at Talenstat when she was making tea. It's like, if I can keep morale high, that's going to do us better in the long run. It just will. If we can keep everyone on an even keel, we'll be okay. Even though she, within herself, is not on an even keel.
Those are always people we have to be careful of. Those who are so outgoing, positive, what's running through their internal thoughts. As we come to a close with you two, you hear the footsteps of Sylvie approaching, and we pan over to Raj. Raj,
Hi.
when you fall asleep, you have these kind of moments where sometimes you commune, not on your own accord, but the Raven Queen almost communes to you and speaks to you, pulls you out from your inner slumber and leads you on a path. On one of these slumbers, you awaken. A full red moon out, and you see a raven sitting on the windowsill. Window open, although you of course shut it. As you begin to crawl out and look around, crawl out of bed and look around the outside of the window, you see sitting on the roof of the sanctuary a woman draped in black with a porcelain mask. And you see her removing the mask as she lays it to her side. Do you join her?
As she was removing her mask, Raj would look to the side as almost to not make eye contact, to not offend, not to not look, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Is she within like speaking distance, or is she like
She's
like on the top?
She's purposefully about 10 feet away from you on the edge of the roof.
Raj would ask, are you looking for company?
Please.
Then Raj kind of like head up would kind of hand towards her and make his way to the rooftop.
As you sit, you can't tell if you're dreaming, and you can't tell, or you couldn't tell if you're awake. It's kind of similar to the coffin dream that you had. As you don't make eye contact with the Raven Queen, and you both look up either at the moon, the stars, the city below that has been built by followers of jazz, she says to you, are you willing to give your life for this cause? I wish to give you an out, if you so choose.
And what would this out look like?
Well, you would not be my champion, and I presume that you would sail to some far-off island and live off the rest of your days in possible peace and happiness. Solitude for sure.
To what would become my party?
That is for them to decide.
No, I think I found a strange comfort in where I am at the moment. So, thank you for the out, but I do believe I'd like to stay.
She almost like snaps her finger, and your eyes roll back, and you see this small blip of what's potentially in the future, and you see what appears to be in an open field, the chained oblivion, Asmodeus, battling it out. You look around and you see what appears to be Mads, Jazz, Eldaron, Rundar, Calcidius, Deegan, amongst others, fighting the gods. And you see them being struck down one by one. And every time they are struck down, you see a portal open up behind them, and you see the Platinum Dragon enter for reinforcement. And you see Eldaron, who had just been struck down, gets pulled back up as the Platinum Dragon enters, almost like he was brought back to life for a brief moment. Then you see what appears to be this serpent enter in from the betrayer's side. And on your side, you see the Raven Queen enter as she reinforces the Platinum Dragon. And it is a battle. And looming behind, you see Gordranus, the capital of the betrayers. And you hear Jazz shout out, "We just need to hold them for a little bit longer." As Mads takes an incinerate spell to the chest, and he slowly gets back up, but it wasn't enough to take him down quite yet. And you can see him charge into the fight. Rundar somewhere on the back of the Chained Oblivion, clearly trying to stab him. And Rundar, for the first time, actually looks fucked up. He's been hit many times, but he's holding on, taking the last few stabs that he possibly can. You see what appears to be Fiernan enter into the scene, coming to the aid of Eldaron, who is on his last leg. Perhaps Jerome enters the field. Nonetheless, you catch this blip, and you get pulled back. Did you notice that you weren't there?
Was this a vision of me opting out of your option?
Your thread doesn't go to that fight. If you choose to stay, you're heading for the heart of Gordranus to finish the fight. And there is no going back for you. There is no going back for me. It is a one-way trip to give ourselves a chance. Or to give our kin a chance. Not necessarily us. That's why I offer you the out now. There's no going back.
Raj would turn his head back to the moon if he wasn't already looking at that direction. For a brief moment, he would kind of just stare off and kind of into space, gathering his thoughts. And he would say that he fled from his tribe, from his family, and it has always stayed with him. It has lingered with him. He had thought it had shaped him to who he is today. But he will not run from this fight. He will not run from this family. If this is where he is to have his last breath, it'll be fighting for what he believes in, for once having a place to feel at home. So he would turn to the
Perhaps the first time ever, the Raven Queen taps you on the knee, almost like comforting, like a pat on the knee. And she says, "Just know, if you and I die, and your party dies, we will walk through death together. And we will find our resting place once and for all. That is a promise I give to you."
Then we will go hand in hand. But I do hope that we meet on the right side of the blade, so to speak.
Off in the distance, as your mind gets pulled back for a brief moment, you see slain in a field, allies, fighting their last breath as more betrayer gods apparate in. You see a bright light in Gordranus go off. And you watch as Asmodeus turns his head. And then you see what appears to be a wave of energy dissipate from Gordranus as it begins to fall and crumble and shatter. And you get pulled back on the roof, and you hear the voice of the Raven Queen say, "If you knew you were going to die, how would you live your life differently?" And you turn to her, and she is not there. And you wake up in your bed in the morning.
Yo.
I would imagine Raj would wake up in a cold sweat, kind of like I'm feeling right now. Major swamp ass.
Total morning wood.
Um,
The Raven Queen had her hand on your leg, dude. If that's not doing it, I don't know what you need.
Probably the first time ever she's touched a mortal.
That didn't kill them.
Sure, that's fair.
the best one. Raj, again, much like sitting and staring at the moon, would be there with his thoughts for a moment. But he would have a sense of calm over him, knowing again that he is doing everything that he needs to be doing in his life. And if he dies doing that, then he can rest peacefully at the end of it now, after kind of finding this light in a darkness.
Greymore, at this point, 1 year later, I know you mentioned that it's more of a storm inside. Is there any control over that storm? Is there any understanding between personalities?
Between between the four, I would say yes, but the way that the sixth one and no clue what the fifth one is, that's what's creating the turmoil, is the fact that there's still two more that he can't control.
You have had a suggestion from Mads, who said we can go in and we could probably go in there and kill or extract those ones that are causing you issue. The one that can be controlled by Loth, probably not in our best interest. Maybe we should handle that.
I want to get that looked at by like a dermatologist or something.
So you have had offers to do that. Now, Mads has warned as well that if you do that and it goes sideways, of course you could potentially die, or maybe that version of you takes over permanently and then you are trapped in the same way that it is trapped within you. So there's a lot of different ways that this can go. So that's something to ponder over the course of the tail end of this year on what you would like to do. But
I think Greymore would stay not going in, knowing that the last time he had a therapy session, that that person said not to mess with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'd be worried that, like, if his friends went into his mind, they wouldn't come out.
Potentially. So, as the storm brews, you all look off into the distance. Well, as this inner storm brews, and you look off into the distance, you all are on what appears to be a galleon heading toward the Twilight Accord with a mission set. And perhaps your last trip, as this appears to be a one-way trip, to take down Gordranus and to give the Prime Deities and your allies a chance in the Great Calamity. And that is where we will pick up next week as we begin our journey on the sea toward the Twilight Accord.